There is a story circulating online about a Sumerian tablet that scholars supposedly refuse to discuss. A tablet, the story goes, excavated from the ancient city of Nippur in the late 1800s, that contains a secret message from the god Enki to a future generation, us. A message about a coming forgetting, a hidden window of time, and instructions left behind by a being who somehow knew, thousands of years in advance, exactly when we would be listening. It is a great story. It has the shape of every good mystery, a buried secret, a suppressed translation, a warning meant only for you. It is also not true. No such tablet exists in Nippur or anywhere else. But here is the strange part. You don't actually need to invent a secret tablet to find something remarkable in Sumerian history. The real material, the tablets that genuinely were dug out of the ground at Nippur, the real texts that genuinely do talk about floods and gods and the transmission of knowledge, are stranger and more interesting than the fabrication built on top of them. So tonight we're going to do two things. Take the invented tablet apart piece by piece, and then show you what was actually found in its place. Let's be direct about that up front, because it matters more than the mystery does. This is not a video revealing a suppressed ancient prophecy. There is no address to the unborn tablet in any museum catalog, no fragment with a begging passage from Enki to future humans, and no astronomical countdown hidden in Sumerian mathematics pointing at our lifetimes. Every one of those elements, as you'll see, was invented for a video script, not excavated from the earth. What this video is, an honest walk through what Sumerian religion, the Nippur excavations, and the real flood and creation texts actually say, and an explanation of how a genre of online content takes real, fascinating archaeology and quietly swaps in fiction while keeping just enough real names and real places to make the fiction feel load-bearing. Start with Nippur itself. It was a real and genuinely central site in Sumerian religious life. The Sumerians regarded it as the location where heaven and earth were bound together, home to the great temple complex, the Eker, dedicated to the god Enlil. American excavations there did begin in the 1880s, led by teams from the University of Pennsylvania, and they did recover an enormous number of cuneiform tablets, tens of thousands of them, mostly administrative records, hymns, and school exercises used to train scribes. Nippur really was one of the richest textual sites in the ancient Near East. None of that is exaggeration. Enki, also known by his Akkadian name, was a real and major figure in the Mesopotamian pantheon, understood as a god of freshwater, wisdom, crafts, and creation, associated with the Abzu, the subterranean freshwater realm. He genuinely does appear across Sumerian and Babylonian literature as a protector figure who works around the edges of divine decisions rather than issuing them himself. The flood narrative is real, and it predates the biblical account by roughly 1,000 years, appearing in the Atrahasis epic and echoed in the Epic of Gilgamesh. In the Atrahasis, Enki does warn a human, Atrahasis, of the coming flood, and by one telling he does it indirectly, speaking through the wall of a reed structure to avoid violating a decree from the other gods. He instructs Atrahasis to build a boat. That detail, oddly, is one of the few things in the original video that lines up with a genuine ancient text. Sumerian civilization's apparent suddenness, writing, mathematics, legal codes, astronomy, and irrigation engineering all appearing within a relatively compact window in the 4th and 3rd millennia BCE, is a real point of interest in Mesopotamian archaeology, though mainstream scholarship explains it through longer, less dramatic processes, centuries of village-to-city development in southern Mesopotamia, gradual complexity in administration driving the invention of writing and diffusion of technology across the region, not a sudden transfer from an outside source. The Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic, the Sumerian king list, the Eridu Genesis, and the biblical Genesis flood account are all real, documented, translatable texts, and comparative mythologists have long studied the genuine parallels between Mesopotamian and biblical flood traditions. The Book of Enoch is also a real ancient text. More on that in a moment. And the Egyptian material has a real anchor too. Zep Tepi, the first time, is a genuine concept in Egyptian mythology referring to a primeval age associated with the gods, and Thoth genuinely is associated in Egyptian religious tradition with sacred and hidden knowledge. That's real Egyptian belief, not evidence of anything beyond Egyptian belief. Now the other half. There is no tablet called the Address to the Unborn. No translator, ancient or modern, has ever produced or published a Sumerian text in which Enki addresses a future, post-collapse humanity using a special grammatical construction for pleading. That specific grammatical claim, a suffix supposedly marking a god as lesser in power than his audience, describes a feature that does not exist in the way Sumerian grammar actually works, and no Assyriologist has published anything resembling it. This is a fabricated document, full stop, not an unverified or suppressed one. Nothing was suppressed because nothing was found. The British Museum fragment with a catalog number describing knowledge held beneath the water is also invented. No such fragment is cited by any Real Museum record, and the video's version, dropping in a vague, official-sounding catalog number in the Kiyunjik archive without ever giving an actual one, is a technique worth naming: manufactured specificity. Precise-sounding details are used to simulate the feel of a citation without giving you anything you could actually go check. The same goes for the astronomical convergence calculations near the end of the source material. Dressed in real astronomical vocabulary, precession of the equinoxes is a real, well-understood 25,772-year cycle, but applied to a non-existent tablet to produce a non-existent date. The Great Eraser, the structured forgetting, the three requests, the idea of a closing window tied to human consciousness reaching some threshold. None of this appears in any Sumerian, Akkadian, or Egyptian primary source. It's original fiction, written in the voice of ancient text. It's also worth naming the broader tradition this fiction is borrowing its furniture from. In the 1970s, the writer Zecharia Sitchin proposed that the Anunnaki were literally extraterrestrial beings who genetically engineered humanity, and that Sumerian mythology encoded real astronomical and biological science. This is a real, identifiable movement, usually called ancient astronaut theory, and it has been reviewed and rejected by mainstream Assyriology and Near Eastern archaeology on both linguistic and factual grounds. Sitchin's Sumerian translations are not accepted as accurate by scholars working with the actual language. It is not a live, ongoing academic debate. It is a rejected fringe reading being recirculated as if it were current scholarship. One more pattern worth flagging directly: the framing that the scholars keep circling back to it, but the full translation stayed inside academic archives, implies a cover-up. In reality, Assyriology is an open field. Translations, disagreements, and new readings of tablets are published in academic journals and conference proceedings, not withheld. If a genuinely startling tablet existed, the field's incentive would be to publish it as fast and as loudly as possible, not to sit on it for decades. A few of the ideas the original material leans on aren't just archaeologically invented. They sit in real tension with basic Islamic belief, and that's worth stating plainly rather than glossing over. First, none of this, Enki, Enlil, the Anunnaki as a council of powerful beings acting somewhat independently to shape human history, is presented here as real. These are figures within Mesopotamian religious tradition, described as this text says, or in this belief system, not as entities that actually exist or act. Second, the Book of Enoch, sometimes pulled into this genre alongside Sumerian material to talk about watchers and hybrid beings, is not part of the Quran, is not authentic hadith, and carries no scriptural authority in Islam. It's an ancient Jewish pseudepigraphal text with its own separate history, interesting to religious historians, but not a source of Islamic belief. Third, and more fundamentally, the idea running underneath stories like this, that humanity was shaped, engineered, or designed by some other being, divine counsel, or advanced outside power, conflicts directly with Islamic Aqidah. In Islamic belief, Adam was created directly by Allah, who shaped him from clay and breathed into him a spirit of his own making. That is not a minor variant on the story. It's the story as revealed, and it has no room for an intermediary designer, human or otherwise. Fourth, the premise that a group of powerful non-human beings has been quietly steering the rise and fall of human civilizations, deciding when knowledge is given and when it is deliberately erased, stands in real tension with Tawhid, the core Islamic principle that ultimate power and control over creation belongs to Allah alone. Framing history as secretly authored by any other agency, independent of or parallel to Allah's will, is exactly the kind of claim Islamic theology pushes back on hardest. Fifth, on the astronomical countdown element specifically, Islamic teaching holds that knowledge of the unseen future, al-ghaib, belongs to Allah alone. A claim that ancient astronomy encodes a real future date for humanity is functionally a form of divination, and it's something Islamic scholarship treats with real caution regardless of what tradition it's dressed in. And finally, on the flood, the Atrahasis and Genesis flood stories are genuinely worth studying side by side as literature and history. But the Quranic account of the flood of Noah, peace be upon him, is a matter of revealed belief for Muslims, a decree of Allah in response to his people's persistent rejection of his message, not a mechanically engineered event operated by any other party. Treating the flood as a technical operation carried out by a non-divine council isn't just another cross-cultural parallel. It quietly replaces a matter of revealed belief with a science fiction premise, and that substitution deserves to be named rather than left implied. The truth is, you didn't need an invented tablet to find something worth sitting with here. A civilization that built cities, wrote the world's oldest laws, and told a flood story 1,000 years before Genesis left behind more than enough real mystery in the tablets that actually survived. Sometimes the honest version of the story is the one that was buried the whole time, not because anyone hid it, but because it's quieter than a version built to keep you watching.